Hello everyone and welcome to a Philfuckovitz presentation on creating the ideational. This morning's topic will be what could be described as the Russian invasion of the Ukraine, but we will see how the front pages of the world's newspapers are depicting this. So one interesting question to ask yourself here is, how does the world feel about this? And the problem in answering that is, well, there are lots of countries in the world, and so I've decided to take the easy option and just have a look firstly at the most populous countries in the world, India and China, two of the newspapers, or a newspaper from each country. Okay, the Chinese BBC, or Xinhua, front page here. As you can see, it's got nothing to do with Russia or the Ukraine. The next news story are some people, probably farmers.
In China. Next thing, about Beijing. Not sure what it is, creativity. Okay, next one is about some snowy place somewhere. That's not Ukraine or Russia. So we can see here, the front page news, a panda playing with something, someone skiing, just had a bunch of, I think it's children playing hockey. They're all Chinese news. Nothing here at all about the situation between Russia and Ukraine. If we
go into the international section, then we can see straight away some story about the Ukraine. Yeah, so Russia has made an incursion into the east in Ukraine. So it's quite descriptive. It shows some people, but we don't know who they are. Are they Ukrainians suffering, or Russians suffering, or the eastern part of Ukrainian people suffering? And it specifies that it is the eastern Ukraine. It's not talking about attacks anywhere else. So it is negative, it's creating some negativity, but it's not pushing in any particular direction. I will give it a +1 for that picture. But I'm not going to multiply it by 5 because you've got to click on the international section, and maybe not everyone does that. I'll give it a multiplication factor of 2. So that's +2. And then shows Putin. And so basically they'll be quoting him about justifying why this is happening. And then if we come down, we can see a Chinese spokesperson talking about the situation in quite a neutral way. If we click on that, we'll probably see criticism of NATO. So I'll give that a -1 surrounding it. The title there is very, very neutral. It's a 0. So overall, +1 for the Chinese news there. +1 for the Chinese news. Okay, what about India? Let's hop over to India. So my newspaper of choice for India is the Times of India. Wonderful, wonderful newspaper. And as you can see here, it has a picture of President Putin on the front, looking quite aggressive, and a missile. So that's quite an emotional picture. And this is where you have to be a little bit careful when thinking about how a picture might affect the mind of a reader in a different country, because it could create different emotions. There might be some people who'll be quite happy to actually see the president of Russia looking aggressive and missiles flying somewhere. So it's a little bit dangerous. My first instinct was to give this a +5, the picture of +5, because it's creating negativity, creating fear. But then I thought, no, I need to double check what an impact this might be having. And I thought 2 ways you can double check. Number 1, have a look at the full article to see if the text is also creating aggression and negativity. So I clicked on the text and it has that same title, military moves into. So I'll give this a +2 because it is saying moves into, but again, we don't know. Maybe this is creating positivity rather than negativity. That's kind of what we're looking at here. Blasts hit multiple cities. Okay, so the picture would be +5. This would be +3, 4. But then I thought, wait a second. Let's have a little look. There's nothing here about deaths or people being afraid. So I thought, let's have a look at some of the comments to see if the top comments are positive or negative about this military action. And these were the top comments in the Times of India. John, I don't know, it's probably an Indian John, not an Australian John. Air India is the only private-owned airline taking a step, talking back our Indians from Ukraine. Once again, Ratan Tata. So this is being positive about Air India. Nothing to do with the Russia-Ukraine side of things. The next one, 61 upvotes, 26 downvotes. So a bit of a mixed reaction. US broke Russia and gave birth to Ukraine. Now Russia is getting Ukraine back. What's wrong in that? Ukraine was always part of Russia. So this is where you start to understand that maybe Indians have a slightly different point of view. Um, and for example, when Trump was president, apparently one translator was saying it was fairly easy to translate what Trump was saying in English um, into Hindi, because Trump's style of speaking was actually, you could find an equivalent in Hindi of that style of speech. And whereas in Japan, the Japanese translators had a horrible time translating what Trump was saying, for example, North Korean president being Rocket Man, because in Japan nobody speaks like that. So they had a very difficult time trying to find the equivalent of that style for the local population. So we can see here that maybe the way of looking at things is a bit different in India. Let's have a look at the last one, also 56. It's hard to understand for West that everything and everyone is not money oriented. So the West doesn't understand. Some values are above. Simple reforms in Ukraine can solve. So again, I think this is pushing away from criticism of Russia. So for this reason, I'm going to change the scores for the picture and the title. I don't want to move it in the other way, saying this is creating positivity about Russia, because I really don't know. I will give it a -1. It's very strong, so the multiplying factor is -5. Russian military moves into Ukraine. Maybe give that a 0. And so the picture there is a -5. The title's a 0. And the surrounding, Biden will respond. Okay. And then straight away, the next one comes into agenda issue. Down that, Putin calls on Ukraine. So Putin calls on, that's very positive. In the BBC, the New York Times, you'll never see Putin calls on, because that's what the good person does. So this also backs up the idea that the front page picture being created, or idea in the reader's mind being created by the Times of India, is leaning towards the positive of this thing we call Russia. So that does confirm what I was thinking about the picture. So overall, that surrounding, I think, again, I'm just going to play it safe and give it a 0. So the Times of India, which I've chosen to represent all of India, obviously not, is -5. So China, I think, was a +1. Times of India, -1, -5. So there you go. The conclusion of my very quick analysis is that the 1/3 of the world is a -3. Let's pop over to the English-speaking newspapers which I've chosen. And we'll start with The Guardian, which you remember in the previous video was the most emotionally negative about this thing we called Russia, the actor Russia or the actor Putin. And that was consistent with what it's been like for quite a few weeks now. So we would expect to see again something emotional in the picture. Yeah, someone running away, barbed wire. There was another picture of a Ukrainian soldier in the Kiev metro. So, you know, people under attack. So I'd give it a plus. You know, it's not showing dead children, you know, women crying. I'd give it a +3. It's fairly strong, but not that strong for the picture. A +3. Putin has launched full-scale invasion. So that's beautiful. That's beautiful. This is why I recommend people read The Guardian, because you get a lot of adjectives, very descriptive adjectives. If you read something that's a little bit more neutral and just presents facts, you don't get many picturesque words. But when you've got something that targets the emotions like The Guardian, which is strange, it is a broadsheet, it's not a tabloid. They do tend to use more. And look again, the authority that they are quoting again is, before it was the president of the Ukraine, now it's the Ukrainian foreign minister. So they're definitely projecting things from the Ukrainian side. So I'm going to give the picture a +3, and I'll give the title a +5. Yeah, +5. Maybe something could be stronger. Down the bottom here, Ukrainian president vows to fight. That's what the good guy does. He vows to fight. So a lot of the positive language, very descriptive, very emotional, is connected with this thing we call the Ukraine. And so it's projecting not so much a negative view of Russia, really, but more a positive view of Ukraine and the Ukrainians. Yeah, the surrounding news, I think, well, it's the same thing. Russia launches Ukraine invasion. There it is, the word I used this morning, invasion. For the first time we see, there was no mention really of invasion before. The Chinese equivalent I'd have to look up. I think it was like incursion. I think it was a minor word, but I don't want to lie. Then, I don't know, the surrounding news of Donald Trump, there's a lot of negativity that was created in the minds of people connecting Donald Trump, the thing we call Donald Trump and the thing we called Russia. Um, so I guess the surrounding is creating a lot of negativity. So let's say the surroundings are +4. So we've got the picture is a +3, title +5, that's +40. And then +4, +44. So if we look at the 1/3 of the world, China, India, that was a -4 together, I think. A -4, maybe -2. The Guardian +44. Okay, what about the BBC, another English newspaper, or British newspaper, or UK newspaper? So we can see that the BBC has Russia as a direct actor here. Russia. It's going to do something. What's it going to do? Launch. It's a very active verb. Launch a product, launch a project, launch a mission. And what do they launch? A major military operation. So, yeah, not emotional, military operation. It's quite official, major. You know, what was that word language in The Guardian again? That language in The Guardian was, full-scale invasion. Full-scale invasion in The Guardian. BBC, full-scale invasion, major military operation. They're two different things. A military operation is quite precise and technical and intelligent, whereas a full-scale invasion is hundreds of thousands of deaths. So what we see, I think the picture as well is well, geez, I don't know. I'll give it a +2. It is military vehicles, but they're just trucks. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, who cares? But I'll give it a +2. Russia launches military. That one's, I think, +1 in Ukraine. Let's have a look at it. What does it say? It warns that Moscow, if anyone tries to interfere, so it's a bit threatening. But again, like the surroundings, you can see on the Russian-Ukraine front, nothing negative at all there. That's quite factual. And then, life may actually flash before our eyes on death. Man arrested over Amsterdam hostage. So straight away, the news around it is taking you away. You know, like look at that guy, Breonna Taylor officer. I don't know who that is, but you want to click on that because you know, if you're feeling negative emotionally, you want to click on that. So I don't know. Picture +2, title +2. It's going to get nowhere near The Guardian. 4 multiplied by 5, that's 20, and then surrounding ones, I'm going to give it a 1, 21. So The Guardian's way out there on 40, BBC is on 21, 1/3 of the world is -2, 3, 4, whatever. Let's have a quick look at the New York Times. What will be their adjectives and what will be their nouns? So we've got full-scale invasion in The Guardian. We've got major military operation in the BBC. What about the New York Times? What are we going to get there? Well, it's a tricky one. You know, first of all, the picture's quite negative. I'll give it a +4. There's a man running around. It's probably clearly put in orders military operation. Yeah, so a man with a machine gun running around a village. But again, you know, maybe Americans feel romantic about that. I don't know. Put in orders military operation. So there's no adjective. The first thing you realize is that it's a military operation. Again, it's not an invasion. They're not using the word invasion. This is strange. Like, you could call this an invasion without a problem, and that would not seem unreasonable at all. So they're making a very deliberate choice to avoid that word. The Guardian was making a deliberate choice to use that word. And so we can see again this consistent line of The Guardian creating emotional negativity, and the New York Times looking for that more informative thing. He orders military operation. Now again, orders an operation. Think about the difference between launch an operation and order. You order an operation and that's just words. You launch an operation, that's action. So they're using a projecting oral verb, like a projecting verb, not an action verb, again to decrease that feeling of action. They do then quote Biden says the world, there it is, I love it, the world will hold Russia. Who is the world? We're not sure. It's not China, it's not India, but they're not part of the world. They don't count. It's just unbelievable. Okay, so, well, yeah. Will hold Russia accountable. Now that's negative. This is wonderful. This is wonderful, wonderful language. Hold Russia accountable. That's clearly someone who's doing something bad. But again, if you remember from the last video, if you didn't see it, please go and watch it. Again, the negativity is reserved for the little title, not the main title. It could well be there, you know, Russia invades Ukraine. Biden says, world will hold Russia accountable, like put it up the top there, create some negativity and emotions. But no, they're avoiding that. So I think all up the picture, yeah, +3 running around there, maybe a +4. +1 really is quite passive. Orders military operation in Ukraine. Maybe, yeah, plus, I'll give it a +1. Um, so because of the orders, yeah, so +1, +3, 4, let's give it a 5. Again, 20, and then again Trump's down there. Ivanka Trump, Putin is making what's Putin's massive military is really about. So you'd have to click on that. It's a mysterious one to get you to click. It's not, maybe it's positive or maybe it's negative. We don't know because they're not being 100% clear here, and they weren't the other day. So all up, that will be what, a +20 or something like that. So we can see again, it's a lot softer than the Guardian, a little bit stronger, but this is the day of what looks to be an invasion. I mean, it's difficult to ascertain what's actually happening, and that's not my aim. My aim here is to have a look at how language and pictures are used together to create a certain impression in the mind of the reader. Number one, so you can know what different news outlets are creating. You can realize that, and then you can learn quite a bit by comparing it. Like, think about that. Like, do I want to say invasion? Do I want to say military operation? Do I want to say full scale, or do I want to say no adjective or major? Okay, so brief summary. The non-Western English, India, Chinese newspapers we looked at today came in the negative zone. The Western English-speaking newspapers we looked at came in the positive zone, but a big difference there with the Guardian again being way out, and the BBC and the New York Times being relatively more conservative when it comes to that part of the linguistic world.